Hey, my friends. This is Paul here. I've been wanting to do a video for a while just because I feel like having gone down this road that we're all going down, which is pretty crappy. I've got 2.5 years of perspective now, and I just wanted to share some of the lessons learned along the way in hopes that it might help you. I see a lot of you posting that one gentleman just posted he's 4 weeks into this, and you're going through the worst of it right now, and I feel you. When Christine passed from her breast cancer that we fought late stage for about 6 months, she tried hard, but her body just couldn't fight with her. The cancer was too spread. So when you lose that person, you're looking for answers, you're looking for understanding, for meaning, for what just happened. Why did this happen? Why did this happen to such a beautiful person? And I'm sure you guys are like resonating with me on this. Some of the resources that are out there, and there's so many aspects to approach this, but one of the great things I found was griefshare.org. If you go to grief, griefshare.org, you can go to a page where it says find a group near me, and you put in your zip code, and it'll show you where these different groups are offered. Usually at churches. It's a Christian-based sharing grief group. You go in, you watch a 30-minute video or so, and then you talk about how that applies to you. Each week of the 13 weeks is structured to a particular aspect of grieving, the grieving process, and it is a process. There's also another group called Stephen Ministries, also offered through churches. The counselors are trained to help with people going through this, and they have booklets that are easy reads and give a lot of information quickly. Like, for example, you're operating at 50% or less, and one of the things I picked up from the Grief Share group, one of the gentlemen that they interview on the video, and they interview a lot of people that have gone through loss, he said he was a counselor in his early 60s, lost his wife. He was out playing golf on the golf course with a friend and lost it, and he apologized, and the friend said, no, it's okay. You can cry whenever you need to. You guys were weaving the tapestries of your lives together for decades, and all of a sudden that tapestry was ripped in half, and now you've just got these frayed cords waving in the wind. Because when we marry someone, when we or whatever your relationship was, when you spent time, and intimate time, and not just physical intimacy, but just everything, in marriage, just that companionship. You talk about silly little things like, my stomach feels upset today. And those are the things that we really miss, probably more than anything, now that that person is gone, is just that companionship, the person that cared about us more than anybody else in this world. So yeah, we are operating at 50% or less, because that half of us is gone. And if you take it one step deeper, that tapestry that we weave together, the Bible, and you may or may not believe in what the Bible says, but it's got a lot of wisdom in there, and it talks about the two shall become one flesh. And yeah, that's very true physically and actually on a really good date night, or just throughout a marriage. You become physically connected, but in a spiritual sense, in an emotional, in a mental sense, you become one with that person. You can finish each other's thoughts, and when it's wonderful, and sometimes it's not so wonderful, and it's a challenge, but when it is wonderful, you just connect on every level. And then for that to be gone, it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened. So those are some thoughts to maybe help you, especially those of you that have just gone through this loss. you're gonna be aching from head to toe. There were days where I would think about Christine all day long, and I would ache from head to toe, and just physical ache. Grief is a physical emotion, and when and it sweeps over you in waves of grief, and you got to let that through, and you got to cry it out. And if someone tells you to be strong, kick him in the shins and say, "Hey, be strong. Don't bend over in pain." But and that's the thing. If you haven't gone down this road, you don't understand. Even these counselors that have been trained, they still don't get it. When you experience physical pain because of loss, you just can't understand that unless you've been through it. And I'm sad that we understand that, and we're in a group. We understand that because it's kind of crappy that we're in this group, but we are in this group. It's happened. So let's support each other, help each other. Another thing that I've experienced is just kind of abandonment, and I've heard of so many people that feel the same way. They've been abandoned by close friends, family, church. What? People in the church abandoning us? Yeah, imagine that. People in the church not doing what they're supposed to. That's because they're people, and they're humans, and we're all weak. So let's not point fingers at the church that's supposed to act better. But unfortunately, church is a kind of a hospital for people that are messed up just like ourselves and going through all kinds of stuff. So anyway, and a big part of it is people just don't know what to say. There was a couple that were around us all the time. Quick interlude into our situation. We met 20 years ago in church. We married 14 years later. She was 43, I was 46. 3 years later, we get pregnant and this little miracle baby. And then 9 months into his little life, she's diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer. It's everywhere. They said 2 months without treatment, 2 years with treatment. She lasted for 6 months. She didn't do a second round of chemo. So anyway, this couple was around us all the time, supporting us, helping watch the kid when she was in hospital and I would go visit. But the minute she was gone, they were gone. And I saw them a couple months later. And I said, "Hey, where have you been?" Not accusingly, just where have you been? And, "Oh, well, we just didn't know what to say." I'm like, you go to church 2-3 times a week and you don't know what to say. And it's true, because the church doesn't teach it. Society doesn't teach it. And, when you look at things, we're so enamored with death. Our movies are full of it. Our stories, even Hallmark Channel is full of, sad moments like this, because ultimately we all die. And yet we don't know how to deal with it. So, with regard to friends that abandon you, you'll find that happens. It's because they don't know what to say. You'll find friends that you haven't heard from in years come around you and support you like, "Wow, this is amazing." At least I hope you do. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help, and specifically tell people what you need, because that's a big part of the issue. People don't come around because they don't know what to do. And if you don't tell them what you need, say, "Look, I just need someone to sit with me, to let me talk it out so I can try and make sense of it." And tell them just to shut up and don't say anything, because Americans especially like to fix things. Like, "Oh, it's okay, this was meant to be, and it'll be fine, and you'll find somebody else." It's like, slap, this just happened. Could you not talk? So, be specific, just tell people what you need. I need someone to bring meals, because I just can't even deal with thinking about preparing meals, especially if you got kids. You need to obviously take care of this stuff, and when you're trying to make sense out of what just happened, and regardless of whether you knew this was going to happen or not, it still doesn't make sense. And it's not going to make sense. This was a special person in our lives that was taken away, not by God, but by circumstance, by the evil things in this world, by, in my case, she never got tested for breast cancer, never did mammogram, never did any kind of screening, probably knew something was up, and then just didn't admit it, because who wants to admit you got a deadly disease? But, it could have been triggered partly by the hormones from the baby, but also by evil men putting chemicals in our food and our packaging to preserve the food that kills us. That's my understanding on this thing 2.5 years down the pike. But, all right, so I could probably ramble on here for a while. I have 10 minutes. Huh. So hopefully this helps. But again, tell people what you need. I just need someone to come and talk to me. And that was one of the big things. My mother-in-law was with us for the following 2 years, which was amazing. But, she was also dealing with the loss of her daughter, and from a different generation where they internalize stuff, they don't talk about stuff. So I would talk and talk and talk, and she kind of listened, but she never really interacted per se as much as I did, because again, people grieve differently. But it would have been nice to have had more people come around and just sit. And actually, I'm here in Jerusalem going to Bible college, and the Jews, when they lose a family member, they sit for 6 days, six or 7 days in Shiva, where everyone around them comes and supports them, and they sit with them and they listen. Unfortunately, sometimes they talk and, tell me what happened. We haven't seen you in 10 years. What happened? Then they have to relive the experience. It's not always perfect, but it's a better structured way to grieve than what we have in the traditional Western world of, and especially, you'll get Facebook messages. Hey, sorry about your loss. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, see you next year. Bye. Because I don't know what else to say. All right, so anyway, guys, people say, put one foot forward, baby steps. Yeah, okay. How are you holding up? Well, I'm holding up the world right now, but thanks for putting it that way, just to remind me of what I just went through. Yeah, it sucks. It really stinks. This is a horrible thing, but we have to get through it. Don't even think about departing by your own hand from this planet, because it's not worth it. There's people that would be left behind that have to deal with your departure. So life does go on, and again, just cry it out. Just let those tears flow. Cry and bawl like a baby if you need to. And it doesn't matter if there's anybody around. It doesn't matter. They don't get it. They won't understand. They'll try and comfort you. Just, please let me just cry. Leave me alone. Let me just do this. And it's almost like, when you eat something you shouldn't have that was sitting out for 6 hours, and 4 hours is kind of the cutoff, and it regurgitates immediately, or it sits and festers, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that, or something. Went to a restaurant, and you throw it up, and you feel so much better afterwards. Crying is the body's way of getting rid of the physical grief, the stress. And in days ahead, you'll cry for unknown reasons. We used to open a bag of coffee and share the first smell. And now when I make coffee, 2.5 years later, I think about her. This is a person that was in your life for, in my case, 5+ years of courtship and marriage. Her memorial service was the day after our 5th anniversary. But we had 5 amazing years of knowing each other, plus meeting years earlier. These are people that affect our lives that will never go away, and you're not going to forget them. You will always love them. And so hopefully some of this helps. I know when I was first going through this, I was like, what do I do? What do I think? How do I get through this? Hopefully some of this helped. If you guys have questions, maybe I can offer some more insight. But yeah, it's gonna be painful. It's gonna be a rough journey. One thing that did help, 2 weeks after she passed, a week after her memorial service, her uncle invited us to her cousin's graduation. So we bugged out of town, and that was good to get away from and we had the opportunity to do that. You can't always do that. Some of you have to go back to work to pay the bills. But we got out of town, and then we kind of continued going different places, and we went some of the places that she and I went on anniversary road trips and stuff, and it was painful. I was bawling like a baby, but looking back, it's helped heal. And going to those places, yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're gone, babe, but you know, you're gone, you're in heaven with Jesus, and it's better, and can't imagine, and you wouldn't want to come back regardless of what I did. But yeah, so those are things. Also going through pictures and organizing our pictures, and they were pretty well organized, but just going through them, watching videos of her. It's painful, but it helps. And as a young gal who was, I think, 25 and 30 weeks pregnant when her deputy sheriff husband went to answer a call with a drunk with a gun and never came home. You know, 4 years later, I'm talking to this gal, and she's talking to me like a 40-year-old with the wisdom of a 40-year-old. And she says, eventually, your memories, the tears will turn to smiles. So the tears will eventually turn to smiles in the memory of this person that's gone. All right, so God bless you guys. Love you. Let's support each other. Hang in there. It's tough. It stinks. Let's just keep going. Bye.